So, what happens if Indiana Jones gets a little drunk and takes James Bond to bed, bends him over a table, and somehow gets him pregnant, and an anime artist just so happens to be there to draw the whole experience, kind of like Jack and Rose from Titanic? Well, you get 1998 Spriggan, of course. That was a terrible description, but whatever. Spriggan was actually supervised, whatever that means, by Katsuhiro Otomo, the director of Akira, which I'm sure needs no introduction whatsoever. And the similarities between Spriggan and Akira are pretty undeniable once you actually start watching the movie. So, in the past, there existed a super advanced civilization that essentially destroyed themselves with their own creations. So as a result, they left behind messages to serve as warnings to the people of our age so the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. But like that ever works, people are inherently assholes, so various governments and military groups now spend their time seeking out the technology left behind by that past civilization for reasons that you can probably figure out. Evil, take over the world kind of reasons. To try and combat this, a group called Arkham was founded, using superhuman soldiers called Spriggans to fight these nefarious ne'er-do-wells who seek to destroy humanity. It's not that difficult a story to follow, really, even though the only real explanation of all this is during a really brief narration at the very beginning of the holy fucking shit! Oh my god, talk about an intense over-the-top opening sequence, Jesus. So our main character is a Spriggan named Yu, and as soon as this dude showed up on screen, I was overwhelmed by the sense of, I swear to Christ I've seen that exact same character before. Oh yeah, he's totally Jackie Chan from Jackie Chan Adventures. God, that's a weird connection to make. He's superhuman, you can tell by how he boot fucks this dude's entire body through a wall. That's awesome. One of the ancient artifacts left behind by the old people is discovered in Turkey, and that artifact turns out to be Noah's Ark. So Yu travels to Turkey where he does battle with a giant fat man with a machine gun arm named, well, Fat Man. Looks like Barrett ate too many donuts. I never understood why when evil groups have a giant tank-like soldier such as Fat Man here, why they don't ever send them in first. They always send in the red shirts, nameless goons to get mowed down first, and then send in the big dude. Wouldn't it make more sense to just keep the red shirts for later use? I mean, you know the big guy's gonna succeed anyway. There's also a wacky-eyed Google fuck with a razor wire weapons named Little Boy. Yeah, in case it wasn't obvious enough, these guys are named after the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nice. That's classy. But those two are just bitches. The main villain of the movie is this little kid named McDougal.
Okay. He can fire! Okay.
He's basically Ness from Earthbound. I mean, all he's missing is a yo-yo and a baseball bat. Gotta be honest, not the best villain in the world, and just one of the many similarities between this and Akira. The animation is out of this fucking world, as was most anime from the 80s and 90s, but Spriggan goes way over the top with it, and it's great. I mean, you have plenty of detail, and all the action scenes are beautifully framed and choreographed, which almost makes me ignore the fact that Yu is operating a turret in a Jeep with no driver. But who cares, because that shit was awesome. Speaking of nonsensical, when Yu arrives in Turkey, he shows up at the airport with literally a mini army of weapons with him, and the airport security is like, yeah, we'll just go ahead and confiscate this and you're good to go. In what fucking universe does a dude show up at an airport with heavy artillery and not end up in Guantanamo Bay? Something I find really funny, and bear with me because this shit gets a little confusing, is that originally this movie was going to be called Striker, which is the original US release name of the manga, even though in Japan it was still called Spriggan. Viz thought Spriggan didn't sound cool enough, so they changed the manga's name to Striker. But then a few years later, Viz changed the US manga name back to Spriggan. But then when the movie was announced, the Japanese thought Striker sounded cool too, so they were going to call the movie Striker. So the US once again changed the name of the manga from Spriggan back to Striker to cash in on the movie, only to have the movie get released with the name Spriggan without Viz being told. Is that not some of the dumbest, most convoluted bullshit you ever heard in your life? Spriggan is a fun movie that blends the adventure and treasure-seeking elements of an Indiana Jones movie with the spy and action formulas of James Bond or the Bourne series. It's nothing groundbreaking like Akira was, but it's fun nonetheless. It doesn't delve too much into any sort of mythos or philosophy. It's just an hour and a half of over-the-top, really well-animated action scenes, a fucking ton of blood, and flashy imagery, and that's not bad. I'm sure the manga, which I have not read, goes far deeper into that stuff, but the movie keeps it really light. I'd say check it out if you're a fan of this style of anime, especially if you're into Akira or the original Ghost in the Shell from '95.